When it comes to attraction, it's very much an energy game. And what I see with a lot of people when it comes to relationships or wanting to bring in a relationship attracted, for some reason, a lot of people seem to go back to mainstream beliefs and ideas and kind of almost like matrixy level advice when it comes to relationships, even though they apply the energetic game to other areas of their life. It seems that a lot of people have a sticking point when it comes to doing this for relationships, even though it's really the same idea that the outer world follows the inner world, that the energy that you are transmitting out will determine whether things come in or are repelled. You know, I made a video also going over neediness, and that's one of the most repellent energies when it comes to attracting really anything. It's not just people, but we have a lot of references to relate it to people, because you may have felt someone being needy towards you or seen the results you got when you were being like that. But I find that a lot of people don't apply some of the attraction-based principles, the energetic principles, to this area. And what I would do is invite you to actually apply these principles and to let go of a lot of the strategies, which I'm assuming haven't really worked for you because you're watching this video. You probably wouldn't be watching this video if, for example, you're in an amazing, loving relationship that's, you know, kind of like exactly what you desire or what you want, or you know, friendships or whatever else it is. And so with this, to understand that it's also an energetic game. You know, you may have met people who are just so attractive in the sense of magnetic, where things just seem to be drawn to them, good things, and that includes relationships. They're either very fulfilled, not being in a relationship, but they love themselves fully and maybe they just don't want that right now. But when this same person becomes open to a relationship, they seem to have very little trouble attracting in an amazing partner or amazing friendships or whatever else it is. And this is because that kind of person understands, either consciously or subconsciously, that it's an energy game. It all is. And so I want to go over 3 traits of just people who are incredibly attractive in this way. Now, again, we're not necessarily talking about just physical attraction. You may have seen people who have not been necessarily the most traditionally attractive, you know, whatever that means, whatever we consider traditionally attractive, and have still had no problem in their love life or in attracting amazing things into their life. So it very much is an energetic game. It very much is something that when you really understand that the outer world follows the inner world, and that also includes within relationships or bringing in people, again, for a romantic relationship, friendships, whatever else it is, once you understand that and apply it, you're going to stop having trouble in this area, or at least it's going to become a lot more smooth and have a lot more flow involved. So let's get into what these 3 traits are. Now, the third one, as we're going in reverse order, is they stay in their knowingness. We can call this staying in their own frame. You know, a lot of people are being influenced by so many outside sources, like they believe one thing and then boom, they believe another because they heard it on the news, or they believe this or they believe that. And people who are incredibly attractive and draw in aren't like allowing their attention and energy to go to a million different things and always be fluctuating like this, and I believe this, now I believe that. They're very grounded in their knowingness. This is a quote actually from one of my favorite series called Conversations with God, and he tells the author of that book, Neil, to ground yourself or root yourself in your knowingness, because you're getting these communications, you're getting basically these clear messages coming through of what's actually going to serve you and be helpful and help you in your mission, but so often because of either peer pressure or other things you hear, you deviate away from that. But if you keep yourself in your knowingness, you keep yourself in the knowingness of what works, of what has been working, of, like, for example, the energy game. It's why a lot of people, they understand maybe that energy is the root of it all, and that so much of what we do comes from that energetic level, but then they kind of move away from their knowingness and they start doing all of these maybe mainstream things or these physical things, thinking that's what's going to allow for the amazing partner or friends to come in, which is at a more superficial level. But the people who are so magnetic and attractive, they root themselves in their knowingness, and they're really good at not continually deviating away from there. They stay in alignment, essentially. And someone who is in alignment, someone who is rooted in their knowingness, in their wisdom, in what's coming through, is extremely attractive. They're grounded. You know, regardless if there's peer pressure, regardless if, you know, someone's even saying to them, you know, like, I don't believe that, you're an idiot for believing that, whatever else, they'll kind of brush that off and root themselves in their knowingness. And someone like this, again, is just incredibly attractive, incredibly good at drawing in, because they're grounded, they emanate emanate their frequency out and draw it back in instead of like kind of changing their frequency constantly. It's like on a radio, if you just keep changing the channel, you're never going to be able to get the music or whatever the transmission is from a singular frequency. You're just going to get like these bits and pieces all the time from multiple different frequencies. But think of it this way, someone who roots themselves in their knowingness knows that they need to be on the station, let's say 94.4, and they go, I know right now this is what is good for me. This is what I'm being called to. This is what I'm inspired to. I'm going to stay rooted on this station. And because they stay rooted on that station, they get what's on that station in. That gets drawn into them and attracted to them. Again, if they just kept switching it, it's like, 5 seconds later, another 5 seconds later, another 5 seconds later. They're just, you're not going to get anything really. You're just going to be all over the place. You're going to be fragmented. It's not going to be a pleasant experience, and you're certainly not going to draw really desirable things in. And so that's the first thing, is rooting themselves in their knowingness. They know their values, they know, what they stand for, all these different things. And that is usually very, very attractive, not only from people outside looking in, but what it also does is it keeps them, again, focused on a certain frequency and ignoring other frequencies that aren't going to really mesh with them. And in fact, if that resonates with you, I would invite you to put in the comments, I am rooting myself in my knowingness, or I am staying in my knowingness. And again, there are going to be times when you are figuring out what that even is. But when you get something that resonates with you and you get something you think is going to help you on your journey, just to not get so pulled and hooked into other people's thoughts and beliefs and kind of systematic ways of doing it. You don't have all the context for why those have come about, but you will be able to figure out what actually it is for you, and then just to root yourself there for as long as that's the thing in alignment or best for you. Now, number 2 is a big one, and this is like the opposite of neediness. And neediness, if neediness is the thing that repels, this is the thing that draws in. And that is, they really have very few expectations and kind of expectations on outcome. They're the kind of people who maybe have preferences, but they know to lower the importance. And you'll find a lot of people who are in amazing relationships, or people who are really good in this area, they lower the importance of the area. Because a lot of people think, oh, the more I raise the importance in a specific area, the more I'm showing that I really want it. But again, that's where neediness comes from. When you go, yes, I would prefer to have this, or I'm open to this, but whatever comes through, is going to be amazing. I know the universe has my back. I know it's going to bring me what I need. That's a much different energy. And remember, you can't trick the universe, because I've seen people who will do this, but secretly they harbor a kind of neediness energy of like, it better happen this way, or I want it to be this specific person, or etc., etc. Again, you can't trick the universe. It's an energy game. You will be transmitting out the energy that you are secretly harboring, the sponsoring thought of the thoughts that you're showing, but there's an underlying thought, right? So whatever that underlying thought is. And if you have a true kind of like removing and letting go of the outcome, that's actually what opens you up for so much to be drawn in. Why? Because it's safe to come in. You are now a safe space, so to speak. I don't like using that term necessarily, but a safe space. You are an open space in order to receive. You can't attract things to you if you're not open to receiving. If you are not open to receiving, if you have not created the space to receive, well, how would you be able to attract in if that space is filled or there's resistance there? And again, people who are incredibly attractive, magnetic, know how to create that space by letting go of expectations, letting go of the control of outcome. And again, my favorite way of putting it from my mentor is lowering the importance. When you lower the importance of things, that's when you start to draw it in. And this is why so many people struggle with drawing in people or relationships. They put so much emphasis on it and go, I can't be happy until this happens, or it sucks and I hate this. And that's putting so much importance. You're basically putting your happiness on whether you're in a relationship or not, or you have this kind of person in your life or not. And think of also from an energetic perspective, like let's say you brought someone in, think of the burden on that person of being, the person who is responsible for your happiness. Now, of course, that's not true. No one is responsible for your happiness other than yourself. But if that's being projected onto them, that's quite a burden. And again, for someone who is very attractive themselves and has those boundaries and has those values, they're not going to be drawn to that. In fact, again, that neediness repels that kind of person, which is why we talk about neediness as one of the worst energies you can be in. So they have the opposite of that. They release expectations. Again, that doesn't mean they don't have boundaries, but they release the expectation of outcome. They lower the importance, which creates the space for things to come in. It's like if you're talking to someone and you know that they're judging you and they're putting like expectations on what it is you're saying. For example, like, well, you can speak to me, but if you say this, I'm going to judge you. If you say that, I'm going to da-da-da-da, and you can kind of just feel that. Well, on the opposite end of the spectrum, how does it feel to speak to someone who, even with their own beliefs, doesn't judge you when you're speaking to them? They're kind of just an open space, and they're just kind of accepting and just kind of allowing you that space to really unfold without having to overthink and all that different stuff. That's an insanely attractive energy, right? And it works in this regard as well. Having that openness, not with all of these attachments, all of these judgments, all of these expectations and controlling mechanisms. And again, you can't trick the universe. If you have that energy, it's something to work on, because the universe will detect it. The universe is just getting the transmissions that you're sending out. And if you're saying, well, I'm letting go, and I'm letting go of these things, I have no expectation, but underneath you truly do, the sponsoring thought is actually, I want it to happen this way. I have this expectation. It's not a preference. I won't be happy unless it happens this way. Again, can't trick the universe. That's needy energy, and it will repel. And people who are attractive have learned to let that go, create that space, which draws in. That's where the magnetism, that's where the attraction comes from. So if you're enjoying this so far, please hit that like button. That would really help out in spreading this to more people who could get some use out of it. I would really appreciate that. Now let's go to the final thing that I believe really helps people to become magnetic and attractive, and again, that very energetic, natural way. And you probably knew this one was coming at some point, but it's they love themselves, and genuinely and truly. You know, a lot of people kind of, again, they have kind of the external thoughts, or they're speaking about how they love themselves, but underneath, it's not true. Again, because maybe they're holding on to things, they're not giving themselves that space. But the reason it makes you insanely magnetic and insanely attractive when you love yourself is because you have a filled cup. When you have an empty cup, you cannot really give. And people can sense that. Like, if you can't love yourself, how are you to give love that's not superficial to anyone else? It's very hard to do it. Again, we're talking about pure loving energy. We're talking about attraction, like pure attraction, not give, take, horse kind of trading attraction kind of thing. Like, I give you this, you give me that, like that expectation, obligation type of thing. That's not what we're on about here. We're talking about pure loving energy, which is inviting, which is non-judgmental, which is just like this incredibly just amazing, beautiful energy. You can feel the difference, because there are people who will use the word love and kind of make it seem like, you know, I scratch your back, you scratch mine. That's not love. We should use a different word for that. I know it's, you know, we use love for so many different things, but we're talking about love consciousness, love energy. Like, if you were to look at the Hawking scale of consciousness, it's the one at 500 and then 540 when it comes to unconditional love. Very different thing. The kind of thing a lot of us call love is actually below 200 on the consciousness scale. In fact, a lot of people use that term as a control mechanism, right? Use it as a tool of manipulation. I'm sure you maybe experienced that at some point in time. But that kind of energy, true loving energy, will never feel heavy. It will never feel like something where someone's trying to control you. It will just feel like this very safe, very amazing lightness energy. Now, being able to also actually cultivate self-love also gives these people the ability to accept and also work through truly their insecurities and their shadows. You know, so much of what prevents people from loving themselves are insecurities and shadows. For myself, for example, I'm a very pretty introverted person, and I used to beat myself up all of the time for being that way. There's some people who are just way, you know, love being in a crowd of people and the life of the party. I'm not that kind of person, and I never really have, and I don't get energy from that, and I don't even like it. And at first I thought, oh, this makes me weird, and I didn't own my insecurities. Now I have no problem with saying, hey, look, I don't enjoy doing that. That's not something I usually find kind of uplifting or fun for me. I enjoy more kind of one-on-one conversations. I enjoy being by myself a lot, but I absolutely love that. And when I started accepting that and started kind of realizing, you know what, there's no reason to be insecure here, but to accept this insecurity and accept myself more. Of course, there's places for growth as well, but when I did that, it allowed for so much more love to come in, and I went, you know what, it's perfect that this is the way I go about things. You know, other people express themselves in different ways. There are people who also do that like myself, but I used to beat myself up all the time for it, and it makes it pretty repelling, right? When you have someone who's always beating themselves up, it's not a very attractive quality. Again, they're not filling their own cup. But when I started filling my own cup, I learned to accept myself and also work on myself through things that were just blocks, and also accept how I was naturally. It improved my happiness, the self-love I was giving myself, and also my ability to actually love others and draw in other people. It wasn't until I started doing that I was able to attract my partner, amazing friends, and all this different stuff. Just remember that pure loving energy is extremely attractive, and if you're giving that to yourself, you also will emanate that and it will draw in. Now, one last thing I want to mention, if you go down the route of working on some of these things, is also to make sure you have boundaries, because when you become incredibly attractive, there are going to be people vying for your attention. There are going to be people who either want to hang out with you or always want to talk with you, and also to make sure you have boundaries when it comes to this, or else you may find that your cup is completely run dry because everyone's trying to drink from it. So understand that also the way, again, staying in your knowingness of having those boundaries and like really being able to fill your own cup, really knowing when you need to do self-care, to go, do all this different stuff. Again, it's very important to understand, I believe, or at least I would invite you to look into that when you start becoming someone who is able to give more, who is much more magnetic and much more attractive and has done that inner work, to just remember how you got there and to not let, just because everyone kind of maybe wants your attention or wants something from you, whatever it is, to also just have boundaries and your own kind of things around that. It's what's going to help you keep, again, that cup filled, and keep you in a place where you can truly give from a very genuine place, and so on. Now, if you want more of a video that goes over whether you're compatible with someone or how to know, again, if you're meant to be with someone, I would go check out this video next. Again, I would highly recommend that you are coming from what we went over in this video first, cultivating that self-love, because you will attract what you are. But that's a good video to take a look at next after you've done that.